Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Process That podcast with Emily and Nick. I'm Emily Christopher. This is Nick Honorkamp. Say hello, Nick.
Hey, everybody.
We are so excited that you have joined us. We are two former colleagues who worked in ministry together for 8 years, I want to say.
Something like that.
And something like that. And we now live 7 hours apart, but I've continued to be friends. I consider Nick like another father figure in my life. And it's been interesting processing our lives outside of ministry. And that's how this podcast came about. And we actually did like a little mini show during the pandemic called Coffee Chats. And it was a blast. We had a lot of fun. We got a lot of backlash. It was great. And the reason we did is because we would talk about really controversial things, or not even really controversial, just like things that needed to be talked about. And we just had a good time doing it. I feel like we grew and we learned a lot. And so I would call Nick. I just moved to Virginia Beach, and I would just pick up the phone and call Nick to process through some stuff, something I've seen, something I was feeling. And we were like, dang, this would be good if this was a podcast.
The two of us were interacting together in front of people.
Yes. So this is how we got here. I've always wanted to do a podcast. If you ask me what my dreams or like my ultimate job would be, there's two things. I would like to be a talk show host or a benevolent dictator. So this is my step to the first thing.
Yes, female benevolent dictators, what more specifically?
Yes, specifically. So what we're going to do is this is going to be interactive, and we don't know where this is going to go necessarily, but we knew that we needed to do this. And so we're going to be talking about all kinds of topics, and we want to hear from you guys. You'll be able to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we'll also be putting our podcast on Spotify and a bunch of other places that you can listen to podcasts. And we want to hear what you guys are processing through. We want to hear about your struggles, your joys, your revelations, because we also want to highlight those here on the Let's Process That podcast. And so today, we don't want to start with just like a hard topic, but we do want to start with kind of how this came about. And that was some of our observations on social media. And wow, oh wow, is social media a ride? And I know we have freedom of speech. I know that all of us have a different opinion and we feel different things. We have totally different life experiences. But a lot of that needs to not just be a post that's thrown in the wind, but a moment to be like, what the heck was that about?
Let's process that for a minute.
Let's process that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have just pulled a few of our observations. We are not going to throw anybody under the bus. And I also want to put a disclaimer. Nick and I do not have all the answers.
Nope.
We are in process with you all. Our opinions may change. We may grow. We may learn. And that is the beauty of being a human being. And so we're just going to start with a few things. And like I said, Nick and I are both former pastors and formerly in full-time ministry. And so coming out of that, we have been processing a lot, I would say.
A lot. You really do see the church and see the world through different lenses when you're not full-time in ministry, but you had been before. And both of us love the local church. We're not here to beat up on the local church at all. We're just here to have a fuller conversation about some of the things that are happening. I just happen to believe that sometimes the church message misses the audience because there's a disconnect between the two. And I think you and I sit in an interesting space where maybe we can bridge that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, again, a fresh perspective, a different experience. Doesn't even mean it's right or wrong, but we just want to process through some things and how we feel. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to actually start with one of the first things that I saw where I was like, I don't know how effective that was, but someone's going to throw it out on the internet. And I know that one of the hottest topics right now is deconstruction. Absolutely. And people have all kinds of feelings about it. And as someone who would probably categorize them in that group of deconstructing, gasp. but I feel like I'm the healthiest I've ever been
Yeah.
with Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I actually understand his love and grace right now in this season more than ever. And so for me, I'm like, if you want to call this deconstruction, so be it. I'm embracing it and it's really beautiful. So we know that there's a lot of hurt people, and the church has had her moments. And there's even a lot of stuff right now going on with certain denominations. And like I said, I'm not here to like roast anybody, but there's some really nasty, terrible things that are happening. And so we do have to take ownership. We have to take accountability. There are consequences for terrible things that have happened in the church and are continuing to happen. So I was scrolling through the land of torture, which is Facebook. And I saw someone had made a quote, and this was shared. And it just says, many turn from Jesus because of a bad experience with religious people. But know this, Jesus also had a bad experience with religious people. He was killed by them. Religion will not save you. Only Jesus saves you. And my first thought was like, wow, that's kind of insensitive because I'm not taking into consideration that someone is hurt. I'm immediately being like, Jesus saves you. Why are you depending on people anyways? And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I got it. Thank you. But people did hurt me, or someone did hurt me. And when Nick and I were kind of talking about this, and I definitely want Nick to speak on it, I was just like, when someone has experienced abuse, we don't keep telling them to go back. I mean, there might be some dysfunction where people do say that. And honestly, that might be church people. Which we'll talk about later with my personal experience with that.
Sure.
But it is just crazy. Like, if a child was being abused, we're not going to be like, listen, some dads are really bad. Some moms are really bad, but you should just, get over it. And like, what? I don't understand where that idea is. So, Nick, when you heard this quote, as I was reading it to you, and just like this overall thing where church people are very angry that people are leaving the church because of her, what does that bring up for you? What is your response to that?
Well, the first response I had is when it said religious people killed Jesus. So is that what I'm going to expect at this church? So I just got a little wounding. Now should I prepare myself for true bodily harm? Who knows what they might do? And it's so fascinating. I heard a pastor one time say this. He says, the church is God's perfect idea for imperfect people. And I applaud that. I love that. He said that marriage is the perfect plan for two imperfect people. I love that God had a perfect plan for us to do life together and to figure this thing out. And there are no perfect churches. I was always disappointed when someone left our church because they were wounded by someone in the congregation. And I think we have such high expectations because we're hoping people are going to give their best behavior at church. And that we have like-minded theology, and we're all in process. We're all trying. And we expect to get our best treatment at church and then go out into our community and face true challenges. But where I am today, I sit with pastors all the time, and then they tell me these religious rules that I used to live under. And now I just like, hey, just second there. They don't have to stay. Like one pastor was like, I need them to give me 100% if they're going to be part of my church. And I'm like, well, what if they're in a bad season? They can only give you 20%. I mean, you're actually wanting them to leave because they can't give everything to you. And so where I'm at right now is the church is broken in many areas. There are good churches out there, don't get me wrong, but there's also abusive churches out there. And when you're in an abusive church, there's nothing wrong with you walking away. What I'm more curious about, Emily, is why they didn't immediately go to empathy and say, tell me how you got hurt. How can we help?
Yeah.
How can I right that wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, like as somebody who was in ministry full-time for almost a decade, taking responsibility, even like I look back and I'm like, whoa, I handled that so wrong.
Yeah, sure.
And I, and it's almost like we have this thing where it's like, you need to forgive people. We put this thing like, as a part of this church, like you need to be like Jesus and you need to forgive. But it's not that simple sometimes.
It's just not.
It's not. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like the church is so right that she's wrong. We tend to process through theology and brain what we believe and not from our heart. If somebody came up to you and just said, my neighbor just hurt me, we wouldn't say, well, the Bible says love your neighbor as you love yourself. Hopefully we wouldn't. We would say, how did they hurt you? Are you safe? Is it okay to live there? Is there a way you can
Yeah.
put up some boundaries? Can we come in and figure out a way that they bring some reconciliation? And the church, whenever there's a problem, she immediately goes to theology, to our belief system, and tries to find a pithy way to tell you what we're supposed to believe that'll make that go away. Instead of responding to people with our hearts and with empathy and with compassion and care, there is time to deal with some of those things later. But in the meantime, we have a wounded person here. And as Christians, we should hit that first. My thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if we are going to be Christ-like, Christ always met the need
Mm-hmm.
before he was like, let me tell you the theology and let me give you a parable about that. And so let's sit with this person and let them feel their feelings,
Yep.
take ownership for where we totally screwed up,
Yep.
and then work to see how that is going to reconcile, be redeemed, healed, and also swallow the hard pill when that's not what that person wants.
Listen, you just went downright biblical. Jesus healed, delivered, fed. He removed the barrier and met the need, and then gave people a choice to accept him or not accept. He never led with theology. He led with love. Good job there being biblical, young lady.
Hey, it's crazy. What a concept.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like we've processed this. And mind you guys, we're going to be spending full episodes on certain topics alone. So this is just a little taste. This is a charcuterie board of some things that we're going to talk about.
Charcuterie podcast. Here we go.
That's
all right. I got one I want to talk about. All right. Now, this post is by a pastor friend of mine that I respect. I like a lot. Think he's a wise guy. In fact, there's a second pastor guy I'm gonna also mention. I respect both these guys. It's not about their character, their ministry, or anything. This is simply about this post. And I probably would have made the exact same post 2 years ago before I stepped out of full-time pastorate and started working for a Christian nonprofit that runs 3 different homeless shelters. We have over 300 beds. I deal with people that drug addiction and homelessness, and most of those, their situations are tied back to some kind of mental health issue. So because of that, I have a heightened awareness of being both a pastor but now dealing with mental health issues. And I had a pastor friend who was reading a book, and this quote was in the book, not original to him, but he reshared it. And here's the quote: "It's impossible for the seeds of depression to take root in a grateful heart." It's impossible for the seeds of depression to take root in a grateful heart. Ooh, I deal with people that literally have brain chemistry issues. They have physical brain chemistry issues and have to be on Prozac or Zoloft or something like that to bring them down to a place where they can work on their life. There's other folks in my world that suffered terrible trauma when they were a kid. Their life has truly sucked, and they have never known hope. They have never known success. And so they need a safe place to live. They need a place to learn new job skills. They need new skills to learn how to produce good results and do that in such a way where they can find some hope. So I deal with people who have physical and emotional issues. And then when we tell them, the key to not struggling with depression is just to be more grateful. It's your fault. Well, it's hard for me when I know people who have struggled with deep abuse and their issue is not gratitude. And I mean, I'd love to be able to walk in tomorrow and let all of our clinical people go because we don't need therapy and we don't need medicine. All we need is to be more grateful. And what I call that is simple spirituality, is that sometimes we're so isolated in the church world, we're looking for a way to say something that expresses where we are. But if you've not dealt with clinical depression or live, especially post-2020, we can't make comments like that. Mental health is real and it's important, and we need to make sure we address everything. I just wish he would have said something like, hey, if you're struggling with depression, maybe a first step is to focus on being grateful. The other pastor came back and made another post later, and he said, for those of you struggling with anxiety and depression, just pray or prophesy this prayer over your life right now. And again, they're only giving us a spiritual solution. We're body, soul, and spirit. And I just think it's too simple. I would love to say to those pastor friends of mine, listen, why don't you just pray for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? and not eat food for a year, and let's see how well that spiritual pill goes for you. There are spiritual pills, but there's also emotional pills. There's also trauma. And sometimes I just want to say to my pastor friends, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, if the only tool you have is spirituality, we tend to give that as the only solution when the problem is so much bigger. Bring dignity to people who are struggling with depression by saying there's multiple things they could be struggling with it. That's what's got me frustrated this morning.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And it feels like up until even the last couple of years, the church didn't even address mental health. And I
No.
think and I mean even as a society, forget the even church world, but like we're finally taking steps and we're finally shutting up enough to listen to people who understand the biology, the brain chemistry, and people are being brave enough to speak out. I mean, I know for me, when I was going through the worst season of my life and I was struggling with a season of depression, I hid it so beautifully. And I feel like if I had been in a place where I knew that I could really talk about what
Yeah.
I was going through and all that and be really honest, I would have probably made a lot more decisions that were healthy for me, but I had to kind of hide behind it because I was getting these BS answers. Like, you know what? You're not reading the Bible enough. You're not listening to enough worship music. You're not doing this, that. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I was doing all the things.
Yeah.
And until I started talk therapy
Mm-hmm.
and unloading stuff, because as soon as I did that, when I started therapy, my whole world got flipped upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I was like, dang, I don't have to live like this.
Yeah, totally.
And so finally, I was able to crawl out of that hole. But there was a stigma behind it. I wasn't thankful enough. I wasn't doing enough. Um, I needed to praise my way out. And don't get me wrong, I get the power of worship, I get the power of prayer, quiet time, and all the things. But again, we are mind, soul, body, spirit, all these beautiful things. And we need to also honor that inside of ourselves. And when we
Absolutely.
need to get help, we encourage those to do that. And we also say yes to that. And we're not afraid to step out and get the help that we need.
Yep. So the second pastor that said just pray and prophesy this over your life, I wish he would have said, if you've tried medicine and therapy and that didn't work, try this, because honestly, it might be a spiritual issue for that person. So I don't
Right.
discount that does work for some people.
Yeah.
And then when I went through my own season of I'm an eternal optimist. I always believe tomorrow's going to be the best day of my life. Yet I went through 2 short seasons of situational depression in my life that it is horrible. I mean, honestly, there are seasons in my life where I had to measure my energy every single day and make sure nothing stole my energy. And I'd have to go
Mhm.
out in the sunshine because vitamin D, for some reason, gave me a little energy. It was that serious. I was really burnt out. And pastors, I would just want to encourage church folks and pastors. I've been doing pastor breakfast this year, just getting a group of 10 or 12 pastors together once a month, different pastors, to find out what's life like post 2020. Emily, do you know the number one thing these pastors are challenged with in ministry post 2020? People are coming to them for pastoral care, but it is way beyond pastoral care. It's mental health issues, and they don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And so I'm sitting there talking to them, and they're just like, I don't know. Everybody, I'm in counseling, my staff's in counseling, everybody's in counseling. They're coming to me, they need me. I don't know what to say to them. And I'm like, so what I'm doing is providing some training. This is where pastoral care is, and this is where it ends. And if it goes beyond that, you need to refer them to somebody who is a licensed therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. And why have we made mental health issues a weakness in the body of Christ? I don't understand.
I think it's an issue of pride, because there's this idea that if, especially from a pastoral standpoint, that I need to have all these
Yeah.
answers. And then suddenly I don't have the answer, but I'm too prideful to say, you need to go to a clinician. Like you need someone who can get you on medication, who can point you into like some kind of specialized trauma therapy, all different stuff like that. But we're too prideful to do it.
Oh, Emily, I had a woman call me recently and said, my daughter hasn't talked to me in 5 years. Do you know a scripture I can send to her that tells her how wrong that is? And I'm like, girl, Ain't no scripture going to work to resolve that. I mean, that's where we go in the church world's theology and our belief system instead of our heart. And say, man, what if you just went and apologized to her and asked her, what's the hurt in her heart that's keeping you guys separated? And what work would she like you to do to build a bridge back to her?
Yeah.
I'm with you, girl, 100%.
Woo! I could keep going on this one, but I'm going to put a pin in it.
Put a pin. Let's do one more.
Yeah. All right. So the next one I have is actually a girl that I just found on Instagram, and her name's Kate Boyd. And this was a quote that she had, and I love it. Speaking the truth in love is not a tone, it's a context. That context is relationship where you've shown your love.
Oh.
Without that context, you're a critic, and that's fine. But you can't dress it up as love because you don't have the contextual right to. And I was just like, yes, girl.
Oh my gosh. How many people think they have the right to say anything they want to say without doing the hard work of relationship and earning it?
Man, oh man. It is wild that, and again, it goes back to some of these communities that we're in, religious or non-religious. There's just people who think that they have a right to address something. And I learned that the hardest way by being in ministry.
Yeah, totally.
Like people every single person thought that they had a right to tell me how to speak, how to dress, how to act, what to do, what not to do. And they thought because I worked at a church, they had full access to give me that information.
I'm telling you, it's the truth. It's universal.
And it's wild that as soon as I stepped away, crickets.
Yeah, it's amazing on this side, isn't it?
Suddenly they don't care.
So you're an amazing worship leader. How many people thought they knew how to do worship better than you? You're classically trained. You have a degree. I mean, but they would come up and say, hey, I've been thinking about the song list, the decibels, and the way we do worship. And it's amazing how much they think they have complete access to criticize your life.
Yeah. And again, it's not even in like church world. I work for a nonprofit now, and I absolutely love it. But it's funny that there's people, like I've been in marketing for years, and people will try to tell me how to do it. And I'm like, hi, thank you so much. Especially, it's fun too. Like I do a lot of social media management, and people who are like, no offense, I'm not ageist here, but people who are, I won't even give a certain age, but are of an age that try to tell me how to do something on social media. And I'm like, I literally read and study and learn every week on best practices, but you just have one tiny little suggestion that is 10 years old. You know, it's just crazy that we think we can just criticize people. And I think that has come from us all being behind a screen.
Yeah, totally. So two things on that. I heard a quote one time that says, if you do not speak the truth from a place of love, it really isn't the truth. It's from a false manipulative motivation of some sort. They're there to manipulate you or punish you. But if it really is the truth, Jesus actually said that he is love and he is truth. So if you're going to speak the truth, it should come from a heart of love. And I've tried to pay attention to that. And then also one time in one of those seasons that I was depressed, I realized that I was not doing very well. I was being critiqued and all that kind of stuff. And finally, this one guy grabbed me at church and he just unloaded on me. And I just told him, I said, you do not have the authority or the right to address me about anything. And he was stunned. And I just said, you know what? God convicts me when he gives me the grace to be able to change. He only convicts me when he also gives me the grace. I don't have the grace for this. All you're doing is critiquing, and it's my job to limit the amount of criticism I listen to when I don't have the grace to deal with it. So I'm limiting you right now from doing that. And I think it was one of the healthiest things I ever did is start saying, somebody, I don't even remember who said this, that there are people in your life that get a view of your life. And then there's people in your life that get a voice, but there's very few that get a vote. And I think that it's our job to put people in the voice, in the view, the voice, or the vote categories. And that's why with social media, there is no boundaries. It just hits your inbox. You just start scrolling and there it is. And then you got to figure out, should I respond or not respond? Too many times I responded too quickly without being tactful or anything like that. But I love what she says, that it comes in a context. We have relationship. We understand what they might be going through. And we want to make sure that what we say to them is productive and not critical.
Yeah. And it's just wild. Like for me, I would never do that. So it's crazy to be in that mindset. Like I've had people like DM me or Facebook message me, and especially attacking women in leadership.
Yeah. We should talk
Or
about that.
oh, we will. Don't worry. I got 15 podcasts on it. No. But I'm like, you've never looked me in the eye. You've never sat down with me. You know nothing about me. And that flabbergasts me. Like, good on you for some boldness, but like, I would never do that.
So, Emily, to our pastor friends out there, hey, pastor, can you imagine one Sunday watching a family and their kids a little out of control, need some discipline? Can you imagine if you unsolicitedly walked up to that parent and say, hey, listen, you could do a little bit better on your parenting. I think you need to get your child, do a little bit of discipline, and I think they go better. They would be so offended they would leave your church. For you to bring some random correction or critique of any way, yet we're supposed to sit back and take that from whomever. And it is fascinating. And I'm with you. Can I hit one more thing, Emily?
Right.
So, because this is leading right into to my final post that I want to talk about. And let me just read the post to you, and then we can unpack it a little bit. If you need a reason to unfriend me, I'm pro-Trump, pro-military, pro-law enforcement, pro-gun, pro-life, a Christian, and there are only two genders. P.S. All lives matter. Let's process that. So this is a post that's floating around. Several people have posted it and shared it. Obvious, a very conservative group. Fine. I'm really not even picking at any of the platforms of who they are. What really caught my attention was the very first sentence. If you need a reason to unfriend me. Why have we become so uncomfortable with somebody who disagrees with us? I mean, this person is like, hey, I'm looking for you to break up with me. So I'm not going to give you one reason. I'm going to give you 10. I'm going to make sure that I catch you. And I'm a firm believer that God is love. And number two, that the operating system of the kingdom is relationship. You don't have to agree with me to be my friend. In fact, I welcome counter views. I welcome different experiences. But why would you start the conversation with, you're probably going to break up with me, right? And then they give you 10 reasons to break up with them. And I'm like, I'm not all those things, but sure would like to still be friends with you. But you sort of push me in a corner. What am I supposed to do but break up with you? And it just fascinates me that we need so much compliance in beliefs. Again, beliefs. That we have lost the value in loving people and their uniqueness, even if we disagree.
Yeah, it's wild that, one, we cannot grow if everyone around us is the same thing. And where I'm at now in my life, I am not surrounded by the same theology, ideology, cultural experiences whatsoever. And it's been the best thing for my spiritual growth.
Absolutely.
What?
Yep.
How is that possible? And people just don't get that. And so we want to sequester ourselves into this bubble. And you and I have spoken about this. It's about control. Like, I want to control who's on my feed. I want to control who's giving me any information. I refuse to listen to anything else, because if I can bubble everything down into this tight little pocket, I get to control it.
Yep.
And it's yuck. We're not growing. We're not learning. Why?
You can have comfort or you can have change. They're controlling it to keep comfort. That's why they watch the same TV channel and get their news from the same source, because they already believe what they believe, and they're getting people that will justify that, versus having other voices to ask hard questions. And I don't understand that at all. But I would rather grow than to be comfortable. And at this point in my life, I mean, Emily, I told you this the other day. This is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever admitted publicly. But 2 years ago when I was preaching, and the Lord said, the gospel you're preaching isn't reaching everybody. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, look at your congregation. Who's not there? And I said, well, there's no gay people or transgender people that I know of. I went into staff on that next Monday and says, does anybody know any gay people? That is the craziest admission that I was so sheltered. Today, I have great gay friends, and I still love Jesus, and my values haven't changed. I just value every person on their journey, and I'm with you. Because I work in Asheville, North Carolina. I see it all. I mean everything, and I the world is rich out there. It's rich, and it needs us to get outside our box, love some people that don't think the way we think, and just build some honest relationship. And listen to a different point of view and share your point of view. And that's enough. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really boils down to loving people and allowing the beauty of God to shine through every single person that we meet, no matter what they believe,
Absolutely,
who they love, where they go, what they say. Like, I truly believe you can see goodness in every person. Or at least that's the life that I would like to lead and I would like to live in.
I heard somebody preach the other day about how to love your enemies. And they said the key to loving your enemies is looking past the humanity that offends you to the deity that's in that person, that they were created in the image of God. So connect with the divine design of the deity of God in that person and quit stumbling over the humanity that you don't like. And I thought that was brilliant. And so now I look for the wonder in the new people that I meet. Even if they, somebody that's totally polar opposite of me, I wonder at who they are and how they were created and where they are on their journey. None of us are finished yet, y'all. None of us.
Not one.
And I just said y'all. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. Listen, I say y'all all the time. Everybody up here in Virginia Beach, they're like, man, you're North Carolina. I said, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I was shocked you didn't start with hello, friends.
Hello, friends. Oh, man. Well, Nick, I know we have just scratched the surface.
Just scratched it.
We have scratched the surface. And we welcome feedback.
Yes, we do.
As long as it's done in love.
Go ahead and talk about it.
All right. Like I said at the beginning, we are not doctors. We're not therapists. We are two people that are just on a journey, and we don't have all the answers, and we're not pretending to. We're not saying like we are the experts on this subject. We are simply giving our experience. And again, we will grow and change. We may say something on this podcast and then have a heart change or an experience change and be like, 2 months ago, I said something and I've already changed.
I love it.
2 years ago, I said something and I've already changed.
And we'll admit it when it happens.
Yes, absolutely. And so we ask for grace to do that because we're going to open it up for you guys to also share. We want you to comment below. Here's the fun part about social media and putting yourself out there. I get to control if you're being a jerk. Okay, let's be polite. Let's be nice. Let's be good humans. Let's be kind. And, we don't mind if there's a disagreement, but there's no reason to burn the city down. Before we wrap things up, I do want us to share when we end a podcast. Some of you guys know Nick and I personally. Some of you don't know who we are from Adam. And so I like to share things that make us more human. And I like to learn about, hey, what is something you're enjoying? I feel like one of the best ways to get to know somebody is be like, what's your favorite show right now? What's your favorite book right now? What's your favorite music? And so I want Nick to share what's something that you're just loving right now. And it can be anything.
Yeah, I got something really good today. I read a book recently called Spark, and the guy that wrote the book is talking about 5-week risk groups where a group of people get together. They talk about the concept, and then for 4 weeks in a row, they state the risk they're going to take that's going to better their life or change the world. And then the next week, they all come back and report how that went. Sometimes it went well. Sometimes it did not go well. And so we started a risk group, me and some of my friends. Oh my God, this podcast is part of that because I said, I need to take a risk. And I reached out to you and said, Em, what do you think? I'm already on it. And so just to intentionally think about what's a risk I need to take in my life this week and roll the dice and go do it 4 weeks in a row, it has completely changed my reality and my perspective. That's what I'm loving right now is the possibilities of the world right in front of me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So I'm not going to go quite that deep.
Okay, sorry about that.
No. I think that's great. And especially a resource that it sounds like it's changing your life.
Yep, absolutely.
So please share that.
Stay tuned.
So stay tuned. What could be next?
Yep.
So the thing that I'm really enjoying this past week is Harry Styles' new album, Harry's House. And I don't even know if Nick knows who Harry Styles is.
I have no clue who that is.
Oh, God.
Text me and I'll listen to something.
Oh, yes. So Harry Styles was in the boy band One Direction, and now he's like doing his own thing. And I've been a Harry Styles fan from the get-go, and he has just created a beautiful work of art. And I've listened through to the album countless times, and now I'm learning how to play all of them on like keyboard and guitar because I'm obsessed. And so it's also inspired me to start writing some new songs.
Yay!
Which you'll find out just how complex Nick and I are. I'm a musician, and actually my first show is an open show. LOL. Here I am hyping myself. I'm like, it's a show. I'm doing an open mic night next week, and I'm really excited. I have a friend that's playing guitar and that kind of thing. But finding good music that inspires you will open up something like a risk. So I'm putting myself back out there. I used to sing every weekend of my life from the time I was 11 years old.
Yep.
And so for 20 years, I was on a stage every weekend. And now I haven't really performed in 8 months. So it's exciting to kind of get back out there.
That would be a fascinating conversation for us to have. Both of us have broken up with some things in our life that are really important to us, that we needed some space in this new season. We might want to talk about that.
Oh, we will, because we'll talk about breaking up with things and breaking up with people.
Yes, there are stories there.
So, friends, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is the Let's Process That podcast with Emily and Nick. Please follow us on our socials. You can follow me on Instagram at Emily B. Christopher. And Nick, where can they follow you?
Ha! You should have told me this ahead of time. I'm not prepared for that question. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Nick Honorkamp.
Hey, so we will be, actually, before this comes out, we probably already have the Instagram up and running. But I'll link that below so you guys can follow along. We'll be doing polls on there. We'll be doing more posts. So you'll definitely want to make sure you give us a follow. And we also might be doing some more in-depth and candid things for people kind of behind the scenes where we can talk a little bit more frankly.
Yes.
So that'll be coming later on. So if you want us even more raw and real,
yep,
we'll give it to you. So yeah. All right, friends, we hope you have a fantastic day, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you soon.